In a forgotten Himalayan village, a frail boy named Aarav stood barefoot on rocky soil, staring at a mountain that had claimed his mother's life when she slipped trying to reach water across its slope. Every villager believed the mountain was a curse, immovable and cruel, blocking access to schools, clinics, and water. But 10-year-old Aarav saw something different. He saw a challenge that could be changed. One evening, with blistered hands and a rusted shovel twice his size, Aarav began digging, not to move the mountain entirely, but to carve a path through it, one handful of earth at a time. Villagers laughed, scoffed, and called him mad, but he dug daily, returning from school, skipping play, scraping rock, whispering to the mountain, "I'll carry you one piece at a time, even if it takes forever." At first, his hands bled, his back ached, and tears often mixed with dust. But with every scoop of soil, Aarav felt less weak, not because the mountain shrank, but because his belief grew. Weeks turned into months, and what started as a crack in the rock became a crevice, and the laughter around him slowly faded, replaced by stares of confusion and quiet wonder. His schoolmates began watching, then helping, handing him stones, clearing loose dirt, and soon the mountain had more than one enemy, an army of children who believed change didn't wait for permission. His father, once broken by grief, began delivering water and building tools to make the digging easier, realizing that in his son's sweat was a spark the village had long lost: hope. By the second year, strangers began visiting: reporters, hikers, students wanting to see the boy digging through a mountain, and every visitor brought tools, food, or just a word of encouragement that fueled the mission. Aarav, now 14, still dug daily, but his arms were stronger, his voice deeper, and his belief unshaken, as though the mountain had accidentally awakened a fire that even stone couldn't suppress. One morning, after 4 winters, he dug into a hollow and saw sunlight from the other side. The mountain had a hole now, narrow and rough, but real, a tunnel that connected to divided worlds. Cheers erupted from both sides, and the villagers, once skeptics, cried as they walked through the passage for the first time, no longer needing to climb, risk, or fear the towering shadow. The path was named Aarav's Way, and nearby, the government built a school and a medical post, no longer deterred by terrain, now inspired by a boy who had redefined impossible. But Aarav didn't stop. He reinforced the path with bricks and safety rails, not for glory, but for the children who would come after him, who deserved a journey safer than his mother had. By 18, Aarav had refused dozens of awards, saying, "I don't want medals. I want maps to change," and his story was taught in textbooks, quoted by leaders, and whispered to dreamers. Engineers visited to study his route. They asked how he designed it, but he smiled and said, "I didn't design it, I asked it to move, and then I never stopped listening." Rain washed away the path once, and a landslide threatened it again, but each time, Aarav returned, not angry, not broken, just determined, whispering, "I carried you once, I'll carry you again." The village transformed, not because of donations or technology, but because one child had decided the world could be shifted, not by force, but by the refusal to quit. Aarav was never rich, never famous in the usual sense, but people walked his path to reach school, to carry water, to save lives, and every footprint became part of his story. A boy who once couldn't lift a stone had moved a mountain, not with strength, but with stubborn hope and a heart too large for the silence that once ruled his home. Children born after the tunnel was built often asked, "Was the mountain always like this?" And elders would gather them under the stars to tell the tale of a boy and his shovel. He inspired others far beyond his village. Other mountain communities began digging, not to conquer nature, but to reshape their fate with their own bare hands. Aarav received a letter from a girl in Brazil who dug a well for her town because if a boy can break a mountain, I can break the drought. His story crossed borders, not as folklore but as living proof that action is the loudest belief, And faith is not a feeling, it is a decision you make over and over. Years later, Aarav became an engineer, but he never left his village. He built bridges, roads, and centers, teaching youth that tools are useless without the hands that dare to pick them up. He was invited to speak at global forums, where he said, "The real mountains are not out there, they are the ones we carry inside, made of fear, doubt, and silence." When asked what kept him going, Aarav answered softly, "I kept thinking, what if I stopped today?" And tomorrow was the day the mountain would finally listen. He believed the earth hears us, not our shouts, but our steps, and that every small effort leaves a footprint deeper than even time can erase. Villages across the Himalayas started youth programs in Aarav's name, teaching children to use their hearts before their tools and their vision before their fear. Aarav never saw himself as a hero. He said, "I'm not the mountain mover, I'm just a reminder that it's okay to start small, to fail loud, and to climb slow." By the time he was 40, thousands had walked through the path he created, including mothers holding babies, teachers, doctors, and the boy he once was still hidden somewhere inside his quiet smile. His father passed, proud and peaceful, knowing that his wife's fall was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a path paved with stubborn love and sacred effort. When Aarav built a library near the mountain, he named it the first shovel, honoring not himself, but the moment he chose to try when everyone else had chosen to wait. He never raised his voice in speeches, never stood on stages long. He said, "Mountains teach you humility, and if you listen closely, they thank you in echoes." Aarav's own children asked why he worked so hard still, and he replied, "Because somewhere, a child might be waiting for a path, and I refuse to leave them waiting." In old age, he returned to the tunnel often, leaning on a cane, tracing fingers along the stone, greeting it like an old friend who once dared him to rise. One evening, under golden light, he sat alone and whispered, "You didn't move, but you changed, and so did I," as if both mountain and boy had shaped each other in silence. When Aarav passed, the tunnel was lined with candles, children, elders, and strangers, all walking not to mourn a man, but to celebrate a message that outlived him. They etched words into the stone above the tunnel's mouth. "Here walked the boy who proved belief is heavier than any mountain." And even now, the wind that passes through Aarav's way seems to carry his voice. Start, just start, and carry the mountain one breath at a time.